Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring something super interesting. It's the world of persuasive technology. Big shout out and thanks to London HeartbeatsZ Academy in the UK for the material for this deep dive.
A great resource.
And hey, if you like what you hear today and you want more deep dives like this one, go ahead and subscribe to us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. You won't want to miss out on our future discussions.
Yeah.
All right, imagine this. You're scrolling through your favorite app, maybe playing a game, or even just trying to buy something online.
Yeah.
You think you're in control, making your own choices right.
Right.
But what if I told you that there are these subtle forces at play, nudging you in certain directions, influencing your decisions without you even realizing it?
Yeah.
That's the world of persuasive technology.
It is.
It's all around us. But in the apps we use, the websites we visit, even the physical products that we buy. And today, we're going to uncover its hidden workings.
Yeah.
And more specifically, we're diving deep into something called persuasive backfiring.
That's right. It's kind of like setting out to, gently steer somebody in one direction.
Okay.
Only to find they've bolted off in the opposite way.
Interesting.
Often with unintended and sometimes even negative consequences.
Exactly. So it's like instead of convincing someone to eat healthier,
Yeah.
your app might inadvertently make them crave like a giant pizza or so.
Well, maybe not pizza specifically, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's about those times when our attempts to influence backfire and lead to results we didn't anticipate.
So how do these persuasive backfires happen? I mean, is it always a sinister plot to, manipulate us?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's intentional, like those sneaky, dark patterns that are designed to exploit our inattentiveness. But often it's a result of poor judgment miscalculations or simply a lack of understanding of human psychology.
Okay, so let's break it down. Let's start with those dark patterns that you mentioned. What exactly are they and how do they work?
Yeah, so think of them as like the digital equivalent of a magician's sleight of hand.
Oh, well.
They're intentionally designed to kind of trick you, often by hiding information.
Okay.
Making choices difficult to understand or exploiting your fear of missing out.
So it's about deception.
It is.
Like those websites that make it nearly impossible to unsubscribe from their email list.
Exactly. They might bury the unsubscribe button deep in the settings.
Right.
Or bombard you with guilt-inducing messages like, are you sure you want to miss out on our amazing deals? Yeah, they prey on our natural aversion to loss.
That's so frustrating.
Yeah.
It makes me want to unsubscribe even more.
Right. And that's part of the problem with dark patterns. They can actually damage the credibility of the company or the product that they're trying to promote.
So dark patterns are intentionally manipulative. But what about those times when the persuasive backfire is more of an accident? Like the designers genuinely had good intentions, but things just didn't go as planned.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it kind of leads us to the realm of poor judgment in design.
Okay.
A classic example is the Play Pump project in Africa, where they installed water pumps that were powered by children's merry-go-rounds.
That actually sounds kind of fun.
Yeah.
What went wrong?
Oh, well, yeah, on the surface, it seemed brilliant.
Yeah.
Kids get to play and the community gets access to clean water.
Right.
But in reality, the pumps were unreliable, difficult to maintain, and ultimately they didn't deliver on their promises.
So good intentions, but poor execution.
Exactly. They misdiagnosed the problem and failed to anticipate the real-world challenges.
Okay.
It's a reminder that good design requires more than just good intentions.
Right.
It requires a deep understanding of the context and the needs of the people that you're trying to help.
That makes sense. Are there other ways that this poor judgment can lead to persuasive backfiring?
Absolutely. Think about those 100-calorie packs of snack food.
Okay.
They seem like a good way to help people control their portions, right?
Yeah, I mean, who can resist a tiny pack of cookies?
Right. But some research suggests that these smaller packs might actually encourage people to eat more.
Oh, wow.
It's like framing it as a diet food gives people a license to indulge.
Oh, wow. The opposite of what they intended. So it's like a psychological loophole.
It is.
And speaking of unexpected consequences, what about the DARE program?
Ah, yes, the
Yeah.
classic anti-drug program. And while it had noble goals, some studies suggest that it might have actually increased drug use among some teenagers.
Wait, how is that even possible?
Well, by presenting drug use as something rebellious or forbidden, it might have inadvertently made it more appealing to some kids.
Okay.
It's like the old saying, forbidden fruit tastes the sweetest.
Oh, I get it. It's that whole reverse psychology thing.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the message itself, but also how it's framed and who's delivering it.
You're catching on quickly.
Okay.
And this brings us to another fascinating aspect of persuasive backfiring.
Okay.
The role of social psychology.
Okay, let's talk about that. How does our social nature influence how we respond to persuasive attempts?
Yeah. Well, humans are social creatures.
Right.
We're constantly looking for cues from others to guide our behavior, and this social influence can play a huge role in whether a persuasive attempt succeeds or backfires.
So, like, if a celebrity I admire endorses a product, I might be more likely to buy it.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
called social proof. We tend to trust and follow the lead of people we respect or admire.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about the opposite?
Yeah.
Like, if someone I dislike tries to convince me of something, I might be more resistant to their message.
That's another powerful dynamic. It's called anti-modeling.
Okay.
We tend to reject ideas or behaviors that are associated with people we dislike or distrust.
So the messenger can be just as important as the message itself.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individual preferences. There are also broader social norms that can influence how we respond to persuasion.
Oh, like peer pressure.
That's one example. But there's also a fascinating phenomenon called reverse norming,
Okay.
where highlighting a negative behavior as being common actually makes it more appealing to some individuals.
Wait, so if you tell people that everyone's doing something bad, it makes them more likely to do it.
It might sound strange,
That sounds counterintuitive.
but think about it. For some people, being told that something is wrong or uncommon might make it seem more desirable or
right.
rebellious.
Okay, I can see that. Like a forbidden fruit kind of thing.
Exactly.
So if everyone's jumping off a cliff, maybe I should too.
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah.
But you get the idea.
Right.
It's about understanding that our social nature can have both positive and negative effects on our behavior.
Wow, this is really making me think about all the subtle ways we're being influenced all the time.
It really is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've covered dark patterns, poor judgment, and social psychology. Are there any other categories of persuasive backfiring we should be aware of?
Yeah, there's one more that's especially relevant in today's digital age.
Okay.
The potential pitfalls of gamification.
Gamification, you mean like using game elements to motivate people?
Exactly. But while gamification can be a powerful tool for engagement and learning, it also has a darker side.
So how can something as seemingly fun as gamification go wrong?
Well, for one, there are concerns about data privacy and manipulation when using gamification in work settings.
Oh, okay.
Some employers use gamified systems to track employee productivity and performance, which can raise ethical questions about surveillance and control.
Right? It's like turning your job into a never-ending competition.
And it can be stressful. Then there's the potential for addiction and overcompetition, even in seemingly harmless games. Remember Farmville?
Oh, yeah. People were spending hours tending to their virtual farms, neglecting real-life responsibilities.
Right. And then there are the ethical considerations of manipulating players for profit, especially in games with loot boxes.
Loot boxes, what are those?
They're virtual treasure chests that players can buy with real money,
Oh, okay.
hoping to get rare or powerful items.
So it's like gambling disguised as a game.
That's the concern.
Okay.
And games like FIFA 18 have come under fire for their use of loot boxes and the potential for exploiting vulnerable players.
Wow. So even something as seemingly innocent as gamification can have a dark side.
Absolutely. It's important to be aware of the potential pitfalls.
Yeah.
Whether you're designing persuasive technology or simply navigating the digital world as a user.
This has given me a whole new perspective on the apps and games that I use every day. It's like there's a whole hidden layer of psychology at play.
It really is fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, isn't it?
It is. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. Dark patterns, poor judgment, social psychology, even gamification. It sounds like persuasive technology can backfire in so many ways. What does this all mean for us as users? I mean, are we doomed to be manipulated by our apps and websites?
Not necessarily. The key is to be aware and to develop what we could call our persuasion radar.
Persuasion radar, okay.
You know that inner voice that asks, what's the real motivation behind this design?
Right, like, is this notification really for my benefit, or is it just trying to get me to, like, spend more time on the app?
Exactly. And once you start asking those questions, you begin to see persuasive technology everywhere. It's in the way online stores are laid out, the colors they use, even the wording of those limited time offers.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether, but about using it more consciously and critically.
Precisely. It's about being informed consumers, not just of products, but of the technology itself. And part of that is understanding that persuasive technology isn't inherently good or bad. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for positive or negative purposes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if we take a step back and look at all these different categories of persuasive backfiring, is there a common thread that connects them all?
That's a great question. I'd say the common thread is a lack of empathy for the user.
Okay.
Whether it's intentional manipulation through dark patterns or unintentional mistakes due to poor judgment.
Right.
Persuasive backfiring often happens when designers fail to consider the needs, the motivations, and potential reactions of people they're trying to influence.
It's like they're so focused on achieving their goal, getting you to click buy or spend more time, that they lose sight of like the human on the other side of the screen.
Exactly. And that's where things can go wrong. Because when we feel manipulated or tricked, we lose trust.
Right.
And trust is essential for any kind of persuasion to work.
So how do we design persuasive technology that is both effective and ethical? How do we strike that balance?
Well, I think it starts with transparency. Users should be aware of how the technology is designed to influence them. And they should be given clear and easy ways to opt out or customize their experience.
So no more hidden tricks or manipulative designs.
Ideally, no. It's also about giving users more control. People should feel empowered to make their own choices.
Right.
And shouldn't feel coerced or manipulated by the technology.
Right. It's about respecting users' autonomy and giving them agency.
Exactly. And finally, it's about feedback and iteration. Designers should constantly be testing their designs, gathering feedback from users, and making adjustments to ensure that the technology is working as intended and is not having unintended negative consequences.
So it's an ongoing process of improvement and refinement.
Absolutely. And it's a process that requires collaboration between designers, researchers, and users themselves.
Okay, so it sounds like there's hope. We can design persuasive technology that is both effective and ethical. But it requires a shift in mindset, right? From manipulation to empowerment.
Exactly. And I think that shift is already happening. More and more designers and companies are recognizing the importance of ethical considerations in persuasive technology.
That's good to hear. So what can we as users do to encourage this shift?
Well, first and foremost, we can be more aware. The more we understand about persuasive technology, the better equipped we'll be to spot it and to make informed choices about how we interact with it.
Right. Like knowing about those dark patterns can help us avoid falling for them.
Exactly. We can also be more vocal if we encounter a design that feels manipulative or unethical. We can speak up, leave feedback, or choose to support companies that are prioritizing ethical design.
So it's about using our voices and our choices to shape the future of technology.
Exactly. And remember, the power ultimately lies with the users. We decide which apps to download, which websites to visit, and which products to buy. And by making informed choices, we can drive the demand for more ethical and human-centered technology.
Okay, that's empowering. So the next time I see an ad, a public health campaign, or even a nudge in an app, I should think about the psychology behind it.
Absolutely. Ask yourself, is this working as intended? Or could it be having the opposite effect?
Okay, I'm ready to put on my critical thinking cap.
All right.
And I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to the persuasive tactics being used around me. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The darker side of gamification.
You mean how something designed to be fun and engaging can also have unintended negative consequences?
Exactly. We talked about the potential for manipulation and addiction. But are there any other ethical concerns we should be aware of when it comes to gamification?
One that's becoming increasingly important is the issue of value alignment.
Value alignment. What do you mean by that?
It's about making sure that the values embedded in the gamified system align with the values of the users and broader society.
So like making sure that the game isn't promoting harmful stereotypes or encouraging unethical behavior.
Exactly. For example, if a gamified educational app rewards players for winning at all costs, it might inadvertently be promoting a competitive mindset that could be harmful in real-life social interactions.
Right. Like, it's fine to be competitive in a game, but not so much in real-life relationships.
Precisely. It's about thinking about the bigger picture and considering the potential impact of gamification on our values and behaviors.
So it's not just about making things fun and engaging, but also about making sure that the underlying message is positive and ethical.
Exactly. And this is where things can get a bit tricky because values can be subjective, can vary widely across cultures and communities.
Right. What might seem perfectly harmless in one context could be offensive or harmful in another.
Exactly. And it highlights the need for diversity and inclusivity in the design process.
Okay.
We need to involve people from a variety of backgrounds and perspectives to ensure that the gamified system is sensitive to cultural norms and values.
Okay. So it's not just about the technology itself, but also about the people who are designing it and the context in which it's being used.
Absolutely. Technology is never neutral. It's always shaped by the values and biases of its creators.
That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
So as users, we need to be aware of both the positive and negative potential of gamification.
Exactly. And as designers, we need to be thoughtful and responsible in how we use it.
Okay. I'm starting to feel like I need a degree in psychology just to navigate the digital world.
Well, it's certainly a complex landscape, but the good news is that the more we understand about persuasive technology, the better equipped we'll be to use it for good.
Okay, that's reassuring. We've covered a lot of ground today, from those sneaky dark patterns to the more nuanced ethical considerations of gamification. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this deep dive?
I'd say the most important takeaway is this. Persuasive technology is all around us. It's shaping our thoughts, our behaviors, and even our identities. And while it has the potential to be a powerful force for good, it also has the potential to be misused or to have unintended negative consequences. It's like any tool. It can be used for good or for bad.
It's like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Exactly.
So it's really up to us to be mindful of how we're being influenced and to make those conscious choices about the technology that we engage with.
Absolutely. We have the power to shape the future of technology.
I love that idea. It's not just about being passive recipients. It's about actively shaping the digital world around us. But, after learning about all these different ways that persuasive technology can backfire, I'm starting to see them everywhere.
Yeah. It's like that moment you learn a new word and suddenly you hear it everywhere.
Exactly. Just yesterday, I was trying to unsubscribe from an email list, and it was like an obstacle course. They kept trying to guilt trip me into staying.
Those dreaded dark patterns. Sneaky, aren't they?
So sneaky. And now I'm even looking at those 100-calorie snack packs differently. I used to think they were helpful for portion control, but now I wonder if they might actually be tricking me into eating more.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be mindful of. Those seemingly helpful nudges can sometimes backfire in surprising ways.
Okay, so the key is to be aware, to be critical, and to be intentional in how we interact with technology. But how do we spread the word? I mean, most people aren't even aware that persuasive technology exists, let alone that it can backfire.
That's a great point. I think education is crucial. We need to start talking about these issues more openly and honestly.
Right. We need to equip people with the knowledge and the skills to navigate this increasingly complex digital world.
Exactly. And we need to demand more from the companies and organizations that are designing and deploying these technologies. We need to hold them accountable for the ethical implications of their work.
Okay. I'm ready to join the movement for ethical persuasive technology. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thing to ponder. We've discussed how persuasive technology can backfire on individuals. But what about the possibility of it backfiring on a larger scale?
Interesting. You thinking about how persuasive technology might be influencing society as a whole.
Exactly. Could there be these unintended consequences we're not even aware of yet? Like, is social media contributing to political polarization or the spread of misinformation?
Those are important questions, and they highlight the need for ongoing research and critical analysis of persuasive technology's impact on society as a whole.
Yeah, because technology isn't just shaping individuals. It's shaping our culture, our values, and ultimately our future.
Well said. And it's a responsibility we all share to ensure that technology is used to create a more just, equitable, and sustainable world.
This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of the power of persuasion and the responsibility that comes with it.
It's been a pleasure diving into this topic with you.
And a huge thank you again to London HeartbeatsZ Academy for providing the incredible material that made this deep dive possible. And to all our listeners, if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to our channels on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. We're always exploring new and fascinating topics, and we'd love for you to join us on this journey of discovery. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay empowered.
Thanks for listening.